We now come to Genesis chapter 2. Here we see God takes a rest after 6 days of creation. The question, of course, is, does God really need to rest? He's omnipotent, almighty, all-powerful. Is he exhausted? Of course not. The reason he takes that rest is to set us a role model. That we who are made in his image, he knows us. He created us a certain way. He says we should labor hard for 6 days and take a day's break. Now, today we know whether you are a doctor, the human body needs a rest. Whether you're a management consultant, you know productivity will go down if you keep working non-stop. Whether you're an agriculturalist, you know the land also needs rest, right? So basically, God is telling us in this creation he has made, he gives us an owner's manual, right? You can run this machine, this human body, for 6 days, then after that you need to take a break. Otherwise, you will break down. So basically, God was giving us something of a very sound advice that actually no culture ever really has. Almost all cultures, there's no this orderly 6 days, a day's break. People just work the ground until, cannot produce anymore. Work the cow until the cow gets sick and dies. Work the human until the human gets exhausted, all right? So most cultures don't have this so many days, then 1 day break. But God instituted it, so we know this is the right thing to do. Now, I want you to notice the word holiday, which we use in English. Actually, the correct spelling should not be H-O-L-I, but H-O-L-Y. It's a holy day, that day of rest unto the Lord our God. In other words, we take a rest from our labors and be refreshed, not just from resting, but be refreshed, right, with spiritual refreshment. I think that's what should be done. In other words, you don't just do the same thing over and over again. You need to reboot, recharge, and the best way to reboot and recharge is spiritual refreshment. Okay, so I hope we understand that this is another beautiful part about God's orderliness. Now, God in Genesis 1, he introduces himself with a generic name, El. El is just the word God. Elohim, plural for El. Here in Genesis 2, he introduces a new name. Now, the name, we in English say Jehovah. That's probably not the right way to pronounce it. The correct Hebrew word that God introduced himself was YWHW. Now, Hebrew, there is no A-E-I-O-U. I don't know what that's called. I think those are called consonants or vowels. There's none of that. All right? So, in Hebrew, you have to fill up whatever the A or E or I or O-U in between, and so you have to guess. So actually nobody really knows the correct way to pronounce it. My guess, something like Yahweh. Okay, and that's commonly most people's guess. And of course when they anglicize it, became Jehovah, and it sounds totally not even his name. Anyway, that name is now no more the generic name. Generic name is God. But this is his personal name, Yahweh. Just like me, generically, I am man. A dog, generically, is dog. But one day you call the dog Blackie, Brownie, right? So that's your personal name for the dog. So God is telling them, I'm God, but I am a personal God. This is my personal name. Now in Hebrew, what does Yahweh, Y-H-W-H, what does it mean? It means always. That's all it means. Always. Shall we say? Eternal. When God came and talked to Moses at the burning bush, Moses said, "What's your name? I need to know your name." And God said, "I am that I am." What's that? That's basically always. I'm always the same. No human, no one else can say I am that I am, because I was younger, now I'm 72, and one day I'll be 73. That's how I have to talk. But God says, I am, always. So Yahweh is God's personal name, and it telling them, I am always the same awesome God that made the heaven and the earth. I will always be this God. I will always be with you. I will always, all right? You don't have to worry, okay? So names generally are descriptive. For example, a dog is brown, we should call him Brownie, all right? Something is cute is called Cutie, all right? So in that same way, names in Hebrew are often descriptive. So I hope you will begin to see that God's name is always, and that's what really help us to understand something more about God. The eternal God eternally is our God, eternally always with us. We are always sometimes like that, we keep changing, and everything in this world is changing. Change is part of life. It's not part of God. God is consistent. His character is consistent. Let us now see what God intends for men to do on earth. The Bible tells us in Genesis 2, Adam's job was to till the ground, cultivate the ground. Now, we know the Garden of Eden was perfect. There were no weeds, everything was perfect. Beautiful and perfect, but it was not fully potentialized. Man's job was simply to take this beautiful earth and maximize it. Another important seed principle. Now, same with ourselves. God gives us potential. I believe the average Christian, maybe the average human, uses maybe 5% of his brain potential, 5% of his creative potential. The average Christian uses maybe 5% of his spiritual potential. In other words, we have a lot of potential. The earth has a lot of potential. We cannot imagine what the plants can do, how we maximize the ground, how much it could produce. And you know, agriculturists like in Israel, for example, how they can make the ground produce enormous amounts. Now, so God's teaching us another seed truth, okay? We are to work with God. We're not to come in this beautiful paradise, sit down and relax and do nothing. We are to maximize the potential of what God places in our hands, the talents that God, we are responsible for that. You know, many people's idea of religion, God is sovereign, everything depends on God, I do nothing. Whether there's a disease, I don't have to protect myself, I just trust God. And a lot of people, you know, the prosperity gospel people just believe, you just pray, man, God will take care of everything, God will do everything. That's not how God operates. God works, we work. God works still to keep the world going. We work with God. There's another interesting truth here in Genesis 2. It elaborates on the creation of man. Genesis 1 said God made man, right, on day 6. But here it tells us how God made man. So it's not chronological, it's now adding details to the seed truths planted in Genesis 1. It tells us God created man from the dust of the ground, and then he breathed into him the breath of life. So we see here, God made part of us actually from the dust of the ground, but that life force came from God. Okay, so now we know, I mean, medically speaking, when we die and you cremate our body, what do we get? We literally get dust. We get carbon, and we get calcium, we get nitrogen, whatever. It's just nothing. It's worth a few dollars. That's all our body is. But the life force that made those dust become life, he breathed the breath of life, and the Bible says, and he became a living soul. I want you to note the word soul, S-O-U-L. For many of us, the word soul seems to be like the spirit. So many people's imagination, just picture this, the body is like the envelope, the useless, cheap envelope, and then the soul comes into the body. So like the soul is inside this worthless envelope. That's many people's idea. The word soul here doesn't mean that spiritual part. The word soul in Hebrew, the word nephesh, N-E-P-H-E-S-H, nephesh simply means a living being. The dust became alive. The cells that were made from dust became life cells. That's what it means. Okay, so in other words, all those calcium put together, right, in some amazing cell configuration, the cell, and then the life force came in from God, the breath of God. Pneuma, breath, pneumonia, that word pneuma, P-N-E-U-N-A. So, what's a human? A human is a living being, a living soul. You know, a soul is not that thing, you know. You see, for example, when you say, save our soul, you know, when you're in a desert island and you're helpless, you put SOS, save our soul, doesn't mean just save my spirit, let my body die. Nobody thinks that way. Save my soul means save me, all right? I'm the living being, okay? So I hope you understand this because it's very important. Man is very special. None of the other animals, the breath of life came into man. So that makes man unique. Otherwise, when we die and we say our soul leaves us, and then the body, then it's just dust, right? Why can't we eat it? We eat dead pigs, we eat dead cows. Why can't you eat dead men? The soul is gone already. No culture I know, very few cultures, dare to eat a dead man. But we eat a lot of dead animals. We love them. They're so tasty. A dead man's flesh probably is better than Wagyu because it's so tender, right? But yet people dare not do it because we know man is different from other animals in creation. There's a breath of God in him, something sacred about man that people are afraid to eat. All right, now what's the lesson here? Breath of life comes from God, makes things alive, makes us like God. New Testament, Holy Spirit is called Spirit, pneuma. That's the word for the Holy Spirit. Okay? Breath. And when God breathes into us, when we are born again, we have spiritual aliveness, spiritual life. So I hope you understand this word. The soul is nothing more than nephesh is nothing more. God breathed and we became living beings. Let us now examine the Garden of Eden. What does the word Eden mean? It simply means in Hebrew, delight. So can we say the Garden of Eden was called delight. Delightful park. That's what, if you would have to give it a name today. Location, from one river there, 4 rivers are mentioned, one you can guess the location is probably somewhere in northeast Turkey, probably. And that's where the world began, and that's where the focus of the world again towards the end of the age will come back. The Middle East area. Focus will come back there. Now in this land called Eden, there were two trees. Tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Tree of life is very easy to explain. You take it, you live forever. Tree of knowledge of good and evil is harder. Now first, what are these two trees? What's the purpose of them? They are what we will call sacraments. Just like we take bread and the wine in Holy Communion, a sacrament, that's a sacrament. A sacrament is a physical thing you hold that helps teach you a spiritual truth. When you see the bread, you realize Christ's broken body. You see the wine, his shed blood. Now the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a sacramental tree. The two trees are sacramental, and it teaches us an important truth. Truth number one, God, being our creator, has the right to make rules. Right? That's why evolutionists love it, because if we are chance beings, we are not created by God, then we can make our own rules, right? We are responsible to nobody. Number one, God can make rules. So he tells us, he decides what is good and what is evil. So firstly, he made a rule, you don't touch this tree. Because when you touch this tree, you will have knowledge of good and evil. Up to this point, they only had knowledge of good. Everything was blessed. The word knowledge is different from our understanding of knowledge. We know knowledge as something I know. The Hebrew word for knowledge is bigger than that. It's not only I know, but I've experienced. So, the moment you eat of that tree, you have not only experienced good, you've also experienced evil. You've lost your innocence. You are now a partaker, experiencer of evil. Whoa, so Adam had sinned. What else does this sacramental tree teach us? Principle number one, God makes the rules. Landlord can make rules for his tenants. Nobody argues with that. Lesson number two is God is the one who really knows what is good and evil. Now you say, what do you mean by that? Don't I know what is good and evil? Let me tell you, when man chooses what is good and evil, they don't choose usually the right thing. They say, wow, the more money I have, that is good. The more popularity I have, that is good. The more women I have, that is good. The more servants I have, that is good. Oh, how can you say that's bad? You know, when man is allowed to choose what is good for himself, he often chooses the wrong things, right? And so you see, when man says, I know what is good, you know what he does? He accumulates lots of money, lots of power, lots of popularity, lots of servants. You know what? He accumulates lots of misery. And you know, people who have all that usually have very lonely, miserable lives. They take pills to sleep at night. They take alcohol in the day, and one day they hang themselves or they overdose themselves. We read it all the time. The stars, the celebrities, oh, we look at their life so good. They have everything. And then we realize, at the end, they didn't know what was good and what was bad. I choked on that because to some extent that was my life before. I loved to have all these things. And I thought the more I had, the happier I would be. It didn't work out that way, right? So I hope that we will begin to see that God alone knows what is good for us and what is not good for us. Even too much good health, it may not even be good. You can get arrogant, you think you're Superman. You think that I don't need God. And once in a while, God allows some problems in our life to help us remember Him. So what are these two trees? They're sacramental, a physical thing, teaching a spiritual truth. Listen to me, I'm your creator. I tell you what is good. I tell you what you can do. You know? Eve broke the rule. paid the price. Secondly, I made you, I know what's good for you. Too much of anything is not good for you. Even money is not too good. Too much of health, too much of anything is not good for you. It will kill you. I mean, we know too much of good food will kill us. Too much of drinking water, just plain water will kill you. Too much oxygen will kill you, all right? Those are good things. But we don't know our limits, right? And so God says, I know. We now see how woman was created. God could easily have taken her and created her from the dust of the ground. But instead, God chose to take a rib from Adam and then create woman from that rib. There's some seed truths there. God could have taken a toe bone of Adam and created woman. And many other religions have stories somewhat like that. And that accounts for how they can treat women so badly. They can trample on women because women are inferior. But taking from the rib signifies as right from your heart. Someone, a partner, someone an equal to you. Furthermore, instead of creating Adam as one being from the ground and Eve as another, he created Eve from Adam. Because later on, he's going to teach that when husband and wife come together, they become one flesh. And then in Ephesians 5, on the passage, how to treat your wife, teaches us that we must love our wife as our own flesh. Now that's very important, because if you understand this seed truth that your wife is your own flesh, when your own flesh is not in good shape, example, you have a toothache. Now the tooth is misbehaving in that sense, causing you problems. If it's not part of you, you would just hit it and throw it away. But it's part of you, you have to take care of it until it gets well. So the principle here, the seed truth is, if your wife is not what you expect her to be, what is your response? If you're flesh, what do? You take extra care to make sure that tooth comes back to good shape. So when your wife is not doing as well as you expect her to do, then you take effort to help her improve, because she is your own flesh. These are seed truths. That's how a marriage will work. Not like today, I don't like your wife. Such a disappointment, Pastor. I'm so tired of my wife. Are you ever tired of your tooth? Tired of the nose that is not functioning? You don't get tired of it. You do everything you can to get it well. Now, there's another principle here, that Adam would cleave to his wife, and they would leave, cleave and leave the principle, right? This is also another seed principle in marriage. When you get married, you join another person, and the two of you leave your previous family. What do you mean by that? It sounds almost so unfilial. You see, that's why most cultures that don't understand this have what we call not nuclear families. Husband and wife start a new family, but the husband and the wife now become part of the extended family. As long as the father is still alive, this new couple is under the father. And if grandma is alive, then all of them are still under grandma. Now it sounds very good, it sounds very filial. But in reality, the outward appearance is not quite as good as the inward reality. Such families usually seem to have unity, but there's resentment inside. For example, the wife will feel, this guy married me, but his loyalty is not to me, his love is not to me, his love is to his mother. So, no choice, tolerate it. After all, she's still the matriarch, she's still the boss. But one fine day, that bossy mother-in-law is going to get old and helpless. And then we read endless stories of revenge. You used to treat me so badly. Now, old lady, you are so helpless. You want my help, right? Haha, okay? So we see here what looks like a very nice structure of extended family actually breeds a lot of resentment, a lot of jealousy that comes up when that one up there lost her power, so to speak. But in the nuclear family, it sounds so disloyal. You leave your family, your father and mother took care of you. Don't you have any... No, we're not saying you abandon them. But generally, when you get married, dad and mom are still young and healthy. I mean, typically you get married, your parents are in their 40s. They can really take care of themselves. So then you leave and build a strong nuclear family where husband and wife love one another. Wife is not jealous of mother-in-law. Wife enjoys husband's love. And then, being so secure in love, one day ma-in-law gets old. She's 80 and she really needs help. You know what daughter-in-law would likely do? Well, of course I'll take care of her. She's been such a good mother-in-law. She never interfered with our marriage. She let my husband love me. And then that produces what is really a logical and loving relationship. Okay? So the nuclear family is the Christian family. The extended family is typically thus cultural. Most cultures have extended families, and that's why we have extended family problems, right? There's a lot of infighting, daughters-in-law with daughter-in-law, jealousies, and all kinds of stuff. Now, two people just coming together is a lot of problems. Trying to keep a whole extended family happy is a lot more difficult than you think. So I hope this gives us some seed truths to think about. You see, Genesis, we go slowly through Genesis 1, 2, and 3, and then we can speed up. So I would suggest you all read Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Read it with a pencil, underline, think through, and then we can speed up after that. We can start jogging after that, and then start flying when we have all the foundation laid out.